G'day and welcome back to the channel. On this episode I'm going to show you how to install a STEDI LED light bar as well as a floodlight. So on today's episode, we're going to be working on the YFM225. So in order to wire this up, it's going to be exactly the same whether it be a car, a bike, a boat, a trailer, or even, a caravan. So all that's going to change with this is whether you're going to be running a relay, how much current you're going to be drawing, is it going to be on the same circuit as something else. In our instance, we're going to be running it just fused straight from the battery to a switch and then independently to the light bar itself and the floodlights. Now the reason why I decided to go with an independent switch is because it is such a small bike and it does have quite a small battery. So the problem that you find with running too many items on single circuit is that, for instance, if we ran this on the high beam circuit, you would find that once the high beams are activated, it's going to be quite bright. Once you then turn the LED light bar on, it's then going to be drawing current from that circuit. So the bright lights that you've just got on for your high beam are no longer going to be as bright, and therefore the LED light bar is not going to get that much current, resulting in a duller light. So having it on a separate circuit is going to keep us away from any problems that we're going to have running it on the same circuit. Plus we can fuse it, and that way if we blow something and it's on the same circuit, it could be the light bar, could be the fuse, could be the switch, could be anything to do with the high beam. So being on a completely different circuit, coming straight from the battery to a fuse, to the light bar, to a switch, and then to earth, it's pretty much going to be simple, or it's going to be something similar to that. So let's jump straight into it and get to work on it. Okay, so I've already mounted the rear floodlight. So the reason why we have a rear floodlight at the back, I'll just get rid of that, is simply because when we're down at the farm, my parents want to use it to be able to go and check on the cattle or go and replace some fencing or whatever it may be. So all I've done is drill a hole directly at the top here. This bolt has a squared section. So inside this bracket here, it'll only go in one way. And then between the bracket and the light itself, you might just be able to see there's a little spacer washer. That spacer washer needs to go in as well. That way the clearance between the bolt and the top of the mounting point just up here, it's recessed, so it'll line itself back up in there. Once the bolt goes all the way through, there's a couple of washers, then the nuts, and then you just tighten up and away you go. Now on the side, it does have two Allen key bolts, one there and one on the side. Now the reason why I've spaced it down so far, if you can probably just see, I'll see if I can bring it around. So you can just see up in the top there, there's a couple of nuts between this bracket and the top here. So what that enables us to do is to drop the light down a little bit further. Now the reason why we need it down a little bit further is so that we can have the angle in which we can do to adjust it, whether we need to go up or down, depending what they're going to be doing at the farm all the time. Not only that, but it also comes with some covers. The cover just clips straight on there, and having it too high up here, you're not going to be able to remove the cover. So I think from memory there's a couple of different colors. I think it's blue, red and yellow, depending what you want to do. So it is going to be removable, so therefore we're just going to leave it like this for now. If we need to put a cover on there because it's too bright, we want a bit more subtle light, you don't want to be waking up the neighbors at midnight with a big bright LED, we can always put one of those covers on. Now with the front one, we're going to be mounting it to the front bar. So probably going to be mounting it either here or along here. So as you can see, I've got my good old snap-on Christmas stocking, which has been there since last year. So that's a bit of an Easter egg for people who watch the channel enough. And if you are new to the channel here, welcome, g'day, and how's it going? So we need to get rid of that, but that's fine. So it's only an 11-inch light bar, so it'll probably run from about here to here. And then, as I said before, we'll just run it on a separate circuit. Now, the only difference that's going to be between this and what you would on a car is running it through a relay. If it comes with a relay, we'll wire it up like that. If not, then we can just leave it as it is. As I said, run it to a fuse, to a switch, to the light bar, and then to earth. So it's going to be a completely separate circuit from anything else. What we also want to make sure is that you try and hide as much wiring as you can. So whether you're doing this professionally, whether you're doing it for yourself, your parents, your friends, whatever the case may be, you want to try and make it look as professional as you can, because you're only as good as the last job that you did. So if you do a really dodgy job and you then go and sell the bike or the car or whatever it may be to someone else, they go then pull it apart, they're going to look at it and go, hang on, who's done this job? This looks really crap. So therefore, if you do a good job, the next person, if there is going to be a next person, or even yourself, you'll be satisfied with it, and they will be as well. So what we'll do is mount the light bar up here. We'll probably run the wiring down through here maybe, and then drill a hole, run it directly underneath up over there, and then run it probably to the side. So I've still got all this pulled apart, and then we might just run the switch maybe here, just depending how much room we have. But once all this is on, there's a fair amount of room, so I might even just mount it here, and we can fully insulate it as well, so it'll be completely waterproof. Tomo's tech tip right here is that when you're wiring stuff up, try and use existing wiring looms and add onto it. So whether you're going to cable tie it, whether you're going to run some electrical tape, whatever the case may be, try and run it to an original harness. That way you're not having to run separate wires. I'm sure we've all owned a car with aftermarket speakers in it, a big sound system from the 80s or 90s or whatever, and it's fully hectic, bro. And you pop up the seals and there's just speaker wires running and there's nothing else. It looks really dodgy. Like I said before, do a clean, neat job, follow the wiring of the pre-existing stuff, and then it will look amazing. So let's get to it. Let's start mounting the front light bar, and then we can start running the wiring. Now here's Tomo's tech tip number 2 for the day. So make sure that when you're putting this together, you always assemble it to a point in which you can start it. So in our case, we just want to be applying power to the light bar. Once we've confirmed that it works, you can then go and start the reassembly process. If you get it wrong and you wire it up and you put it all back together, then you go to turn it on and it doesn't work, you then find out that you have to pull everything apart and it just becomes a big shit fight. So once you're happy with it, then start the reassembly process. Tomo's tech tip: grab yourself a battery. It doesn't need to be any particular battery. You could just use an old Ryobi one, or like I used, a snap-on battery. On the battery, it'll have a positive and negative terminal. Just get the 2 wires, bridge them to both, make sure that it works. So that's all I did with the light bar just then, just to make sure that it works. So everything's all good. I've confirmed that it works, and it's a really cheap and easy way to know that I've just applied portable battery, that I can take this literally anywhere to a source. I can then bridge it and make it work. So we've confirmed that it works. All right, so now on to doing the wiring. So let's get to it. All right, so first things first, I have a wire like this. Inside here is a hidden little fuse, so a little MIDI fuse. I've just got a 10 amp fuse in here. So this is going to go directly to the battery. So on this side, we'll put an eyelet terminal. So I'll strip that back, put the terminal in there and put a bit of heat shrink on there so it seals it nice and tight. And then on this end, we're going to run it directly from here, from the battery to the rear spotlights, and then we're going to also make another one come off going to the front. So the wiring that we're using is this stuff right here. So this has both positive and negative in there. So all I need to do is strip back this wire a little bit and then just make it work. It's really handy because it has power and earth, so red and black in both of these terminals, and it'll just enable it to be nice and neat as well. Don't have all these different wires going everywhere. So it'll join essentially there like that, and then I'll have another wire coming off. So I'll solder 2 wires to this one, so it'll go in a bit of a Y shape, and one will go to the back and then one will go to the front here. So I'll get the length that I need running from the battery to the front, and then I'll cut it, and then I'll get the length that I need running from the joiner here back there, and then we can just work out where we're going to go to earth. So we might just find an earth fairly close to where this is going to join, and then same with the back one as well. So what we're going to do next is grab our fuse. Now I've pulled the wiring through, so we've got a little bit of extra length, which is good. So what we're going to do is put an eyelet on the end of this one, and that'll just sit directly on there, and that'll attach to the battery. Now on this end, we're going to attach the switch terminal. So the input of the switch is going to sit here, and then both wires on the positive side are going to go directly from here to the lights. So one will go directly here, and then the other one will go directly to the rear light. So it's going to be switched positively. So it'll always be earthed. As long as this switch is open, there'll be no current that goes through the circuit. When this is closed, it'll then send signal power all the way up to the front and all the way to the back, completing the circuit, therefore making it work. Now I realize I don't have a switch in stock at the moment, so what I'm going to do is just wire everything up, test to make sure it works, and then we'll make sure that it's all good. Once it's all good, we can then get the switch. Now I'm considering putting the switch up on maybe one of these panels up under here, so it's hidden but it's easier to switch on, only because I don't want to have to run it to the front here and run extra wires all the way back. So we'll tackle that when we get there, but let's just get this wired in, and then we can start working on the switch circuit. So I'll just strip these back, and then we can test, make sure that the rear one will work and the front one. Now obviously we're going to cut this a lot shorter than what it currently is, so we're only doing this for demonstration purposes. But in saying that though, the power wire we might have to shorten, whereas the earth we may need to leave the length that it is. It'll just depend on how we wire it up. So let's just flick the camera around and see if we can get the rear one operating, the light that is. Alright, so we'll just put it down there. So we connect one to power. There we go, sweet. So we can get it to work. The earth here is obviously quite poor, that's why it's flickering on and off quite a lot, but we get that back one to work. So we've wired that in correctly. So like I said, it's always good to double check your work before you start putting it all back together, to save you getting into strife. Okay, so give it a bit of a fiddle. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you can see how bad that earth is. It's just a piece of metal on the side of the chassis. So we've got it wired up correctly. Now, as I was saying, what we're going to do is both these wires will come to a join. So they will join together like this, and then we'll probably find a common earth and maybe just extend these out, I don't know, 30 centimeters, maybe a foot. Depends where we can find an earth fairly close to where we're going to mount this. So this side will be together, and then on the opposite side we'll have the output of the switch. So it'll come from the battery through to the fuse to the switch. So it'll come into the switch on one side and then out the switch on this side, which will then complete the circuit. Obviously these will be earthed and then the circuit will work. So let's wait till tomorrow. It's getting on to about 11 PM at night. We've completed the circuits. We know that everything works. We know the lights work. We know that we wired everything in fine. So tomorrow we'll go down to Super Cheap Auto, we'll get a couple of switches, and then we'll rework out where we're gonna put the switch. All right, so I've just come back from Super Cheap Auto, and we've got ourselves just a standard rocker style switch. Now this has 3 terminals on the back of it. We have power, accessories, and ground. On the way home from Super Cheap, I was thinking that because all my nieces and nephews are still quite young, all under the age of 5, you know what kids are like, and those of you who don't have kids, pretty much they touch and play with absolutely anything. So the issue that we could have here is that if I have it rigged up to the circuit in which it'll allow it to work at any stage, it'll be fine. The good thing about it is if it's turned on and the bike is off and it drains the battery, we have the pull start available down here. So we're still able to start the bike, so that's no drama at all. The issue that we would have is that if they turn it on and they keep draining the battery, the bike may not be get run enough to be able to recharge it. So what I'm going to do is rig it up to the accessories circuit. So what that means is it will still have power there constantly, but until the key is switched on, it's not going to be able to complete the circuit. So then once the switch is turned on, the lights will then work. So it can work when the bike is switched on but not running, but also on and running. So I just need to find the circuit in the starter switch to be able to rig this up. So I had a quick look just before, and if I can find it, so it's just going to be one of these wires here. I believe it just to be the brown one. So I'm just going to tap into this. We're going to piggyback that straight off to the switch and then run the switch towards the back. Now I'm going to run the switch to sit just underneath here. That way it's out of the way. You can have stuff sitting on the tray, but also it's out of the way and easy enough for you to switch on while you're driving. If it's up here, it'll be okay, but you could bump it, you could knock it. At least here it's going to be protected. So moment of truth, let's see if it works. So the switch is currently off, as you can see, on. Okay, so the light doesn't light up, that's good. Come over here, turn the key on, no activation of the lights just yet. Flick the LED on, hey, what do you know? That's it. Check the back one. Terrific. So we've successfully managed to do it. I just got to run the rest of the wiring, make it all nice and tidy, reassemble the rest of the bike, and then she'll be ready for the farm. So thanks heaps for watching, guys. Like always, stay COVID safe, and we'll see you right here on another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups.